Mount Cordeaux, which I have been foolishly mispronouncing as Mount Cordeaux until very recently, is a peak located in the Main Range National Park, situated within southeast Queensland's Scenic Rim region, home to some of the most spectacular natural reserves in the Greater Brisbane area. Mount Cordeaux lies immediately to the north of Cunningham's Gap, on the other side of which is Mount Mitchell, which I have explored in a previous video. Much of the mountain, especially at lower elevations, is shrouded by lush subtropical rainforest, and the cool, dense undergrowth is home to an all manner of wondrous life forms. The luxuriant rainforest sections of the walk were filled with fallen logs in varying states of decomposition, and where rotting wood is abundant, it can be almost guaranteed that one fascinating group of multi-legged arthropods will be prolific. Millipedes are some of the oldest known terrestrial organisms, having existed largely unchanged for hundreds of millions of years. They perform a vital function in the ecosystem, breaking down decaying organic matter, returning nutrients to the soil. This individual belongs to a taxonomic superorder called the Duliformia, or round-backed millipedes, probably the most familiar grouping of millipedes. I further suspect that it is a member of the order Spirobolida, as it appears to possess the characteristic median suture that runs down the centre of the animal's head. Beyond that, however, I am not willing to guess any further. But this species is of some familiarity to me, as I have encountered similar or perhaps the same on other rainforest walks. For instance, I filmed a very similar looking millipede at Mount Nebo, which may very well represent the same species. Earlier on, I alluded to millipedes being quite prolific in this area, and I wouldn't have said that if I'd only found one. There were plenty more millipedes around, and one of them was truly spectacular. This, another member of the Duliformia, is one of the most amazing millipedes I have ever seen in Australia. It is, in all likelihood, another undescribed species. Certainly no one I know has managed to identify it. That being said, while it was my first time seeing it, these millipedes are not something new, and have been recorded numerous times before, in some cases much closer to Brisbane. If the records on iNaturalist are any indication, this species is highly abundant at Mount Glorious, and has even apparently been recorded at Mount Coot-tha, which is kinda curious as I know that place pretty much like the back of my hand and I've never seen one there. It reminds me somewhat of a millipede I recall seeing in large numbers at the Bunya Mountains. In terms of overall body colour, they were very similar, being a dark bluish green, although they lacked the prominent yellow bands of this specimen. And honestly, seeing how cool some of these millipedes look, and how mesmerising it can be to watch their legs move, I kinda wonder why I never really got into keeping them. Maybe that should change. This stunning little fellow was definitely the highlight as far as millipedes went, but there was still one more that was worthy of a feature nonetheless. This one is noticeably different from the other two, and there is a reason for that. Unlike the previous millipedes we looked at, it belongs not to the Spirobolida, but to the Polydesmida. The polydesmids are not as familiar as the spirobolids, but they contain more species. In fact, they are the most speciose order of millipedes known. Appearance-wise, there are a number of noticeable differences that set these apart from dualiformid millipedes such as Spirobolids. For instance, Polydesmid millipedes possess significantly fewer body segments, and their segments are adorned by a pair of protrusions called Paranota. On this specimen they can be very easily seen as they are white and stand out quite clearly. So Mount Cordeaux clearly has no shortage of millipedes. But there were plenty more fascinating little creatures to be found. Among them was the millipede's distant cousin, a centipede. This is Cormocephalus westwoodi. Unfortunately, I didn't get very good footage of this individual, so if you want to get a better look at this species, then feel free to check out the video I filmed at Mount Mitchell, where I found another one of these centipedes and got some pretty decent shots. And beneath the same log, the unmistakable home site of a funnel web. Exactly what species it was, I can't say, but I can be certain that it is within the genus Hadronyche, as neither of the other two funnel web genera occur in Queensland. In typical funnel web fashion, the occupant of the web didn't give me a chance to see, let alone film it. But luckily there was another spider on this trip that was a little bit more cooperative. This handsome little spider is Nicodemus peregrinus, colloquially known as the red and black spider, for reasons that I think are pretty apparent. One might expect such vivid coloration to be a clear sign that this animal is toxic. That, however, doesn't really apply in the case of this species, as Nicodemus peregrinus is essentially harmless to humans. As you may be able to tell, this spider is a female, and she is guarding her egg sac, a most precious bundle. This is the time of year when a lot of creatures seem to be having their babies, and it's a trend that is repeated in captivity as well as in the wild. Currently, I have several clutches of spiders and centipedes in my personal collection. While walking along the track, I occasionally glimpsed some curious things that stood out in the gloom of the undergrowth. Small specks of very vivid red. Initially, I assumed they were some sort of fungus, until I saw one move. This spot of scarlet, wandering around in stark contrast to the dimly lit rainforest floor, is a member of the family Trombidiidae, the red velvet mites. I generally don't have the best relationship with mites. In fact, the most viewed video on my channel is me cleaning mites off of a very ungrateful funnel web. But these guys, my goodness, they are just so awesome and honestly kind of cute. Like spiders, mites are arachnids, and along with all arachnids, possess 4 pairs of legs. Though unlike many others, mites use their foremost pair more for the purpose of feeling around as opposed to locomotion. Younger instars of trombidids are parasites. However, adults, such as the individuals shown in this video, are active predators that prey upon smaller animals. As the path meandered steadily upwards, the rainforests gave way to a more open eucalypt forest, with an understory dominated by one of Australia's most iconic plants, Xanthorrhoea, commonly known as the grass tree, although in actuality they are neither grasses nor trees, but more closely related to aloes and lilies. Higher still, the forests were replaced by montane heath, with larger trees being unable to persist in this rocky, exposed environment. Here, close to the summit, large numbers of beetles were flying around and, doing their other business as well. It goes without saying that this abundance of insects was rich pickings for predators. Some, like this acylid or robber fly, snatch their prey mid-flight. Others, like this orb-weaver, spin a silken snare and wait for their prey to come to them. And they have an annoying habit of spinning their webs at face height right across the walking track. But I'm used to having spiders in awkward places. Once had to walk 1 kilometre with a huntsman up my pants, and nothing's gonna beat that. Among the leaves of many of the plants, jumping spiders prowled, stalking their prey. The very tip of the mountain is steep, rocky, and relatively barren, for very few plants are able to gain a foothold in such an environment. One of the few that thrives here is Dorianthus palmeri, commonly known as the giant spear lily, which can be easily recognised by its large, green, pointed leaves. Xanthorrhoea also flourish here in large numbers, as they do in the eucalypt forests at slightly lower elevations. And with that, the trip up Mount Cordeaux was coming to an end, as is this video. The outdoor type videos where I visit these wondrous places are easily my favourites, though I don't really get the opportunity to film them often, as loser here still can't drive. If you're interested to see more, here are a couple that I filmed at Mount Mitchell, which is right next to Mount Cordeaux, and Mount Nebo, which is a good deal closer to Brisbane. As always, let me know what you thought about this video in the comments section below, and if you enjoy my content then I'd really appreciate it if you subscribed. Thank you very much for watching, that is it from me, I shall see you again very soon.